In this month, we are doing a little series for leaders with our new focus on discourse. And specifically here, we're kind of thinking about the two hats leaders often wear. So you kind of have this instructional leadership coach hat where you're supporting teachers to do things in classrooms. Then you also are yourself potentially facilitating team meetings, staff meetings. So all of these videos are going to try to do both. Today, we're talking about how a prompt and reframing a discussion prompt away from a binary this or this, for example, decision making in a staff meeting or a discussion about current events for staff or students, can be kind of reconfigured to seek understanding as opposed to get into this entrenched dialogue or debate. I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas of how to reframe, and I'll give you a staff-specific one to end on. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So we are looking at a document I will share with you is a freebie in the description. Basically, this idea of goals are fourfold. One option for reframing away from a binary choice is critical analysis. So ask about potential impacts or root causes of an issue. The second is to narrow the scope on how we might address a factual reality. So we have this issue, this social issue perhaps in society, right? A lot of these are based around social issues. That's what it was developed for. But it's similar to a school setting, right? Like what's a particular issue that we know exists, and then what can we do about it policy-wise or practice-wise? Another option is to identify values. So this is where you can invite participants, students or staff, to name what their values are and their community values as a class or a school or a district, depending on your level of community here, and how those should inform action or policy. Finally, I really like this one, civic imagination. So we're thinking about a brainstorm of alternative policies that affirm dignity. So you can see there's a bunch of examples here around immigration, restricting free speech. You can see some of my commentary here. We have one on Israel. There's like a ton of different options that you can look through. What I do want to do though is to bring your attention to these examples. So here we have a narrow framing. So in this narrow framing, we are looking at your emotional response. So imagine number one, you propose to the staff, what do we think about the adoption of our new HQIM? HQIM being high quality instructional materials. Sure, many of you are familiar with this term now, right? That could open up a can of worms that is very polarized and high emotion. Now, alternatively, Schmidt and Pinckney, who wrote an amazing book called Civil Discourse, they talk about how broad framing actually can cause intense emotion, but if you do kind of a nuanced question that's really specific, maybe related to policy, we lower the temperature on the emotion. So what should we do to improve student writing skills this year? Acknowledges the reality and asks about kind of policy or action. So as you can tell, there are a lot of different ways to direct and focus a conversation just based on the prompt. And it's going to go different ways, regardless of what you say, but we can kind of channel the conversation to be more generative, productive, seeking to understand, oriented, as opposed to I'm entrenched in this position and I will not change, right? And just defend it. We want to move away from that. And these are some ideas to get you started. Again, that first document there is going to be linked as a freebie in the description of this video.